Amy, let me tell you about a magical place that is so exactly designed to be enclosed space, year-round fun for the whole family that I bet you already know what I'm going to say before I even say the name. Let's say it together on 3. 1, 2, 3. Great Wolf Lodge. You got it, Amy.
My kids loved Great Wolf Lodge when we went. You probably already know that it has a huge indoor water park with a wave pool, lazy river, a bunch of massive water slides. But then your pack can hit the other attractions because wait, there's more.
Great Wolf Lodge has adventure-packed attractions like Magi Quest, a live-action game kids can play throughout the lodge, plus the Northern Lights Arcade. Spent some quality time there, so your kid who loves the lazy river and your kid who loves fantasy games will both have a great time.
Great Wolf Lodge also offers great dining options and complimentary daily events like nightly dance parties, all under one roof. Unpack the car once and you're settled in to have fun. And with 22 lodges across the country, you're always a short drive away from adventure.
We've both had such great times at Great Wolf Lodge, so bring your pack together at a lodge near you. Learn more at greatwolf.com and strengthen the pack. She's a pickleball hustler, people. You heard her here first.
What fresh hell?
Laughing in the face of motherhood.
You're not turning your frown upside down a week later?
With Margaret Abels
and Amy Wilson.
Fine, we'll be generous of spirit. Fine.
A podcast that solves today's parenting dilemmas
so you don't have to.
It is your skull-sized kingdom, so you might as well make it a place where you want to be. Hey, everybody. Welcome to What Fresh Hell, Laughing in the Face of Motherhood. This is Amy.
And this is Margaret. And today we're going to be talking about the stories we tell ourselves. This is something that I feel like we say a lot on the podcast.
You in particular say it. I mean, this is a touchstone for you.
What's your story? What's the story you're telling yourself? So I decided to dive in a little bit on how this all works and what are some of the theories around it. Can we really change our story? What does that look like? But first, Amy, mailbag.
Oh, yes. Wait a minute. Time for mailbag. Wait. Check the mailbag. Amy and Margaret.
So our mailbag this week is a podcast review from Crystal Roos. She says, as a scientist, Amy and Margaret are after my own heart when they come in hot with the research. Like this week. Crystal says the levity and practicality of the advice and content are the cherry on top. That's awesome. That is exactly what we're going for. Useful and funny.
We are at 991 reviews.
Wow.
We believe and are told that at 1,000 reviews, it all changes for us, guys.
Something unlocks.
I feel like this is an oldie locks alert.
Back in my day,
when you're the 10,000th customer at the grocery store and like balloons fall.
Right.
I don't know where that idea. I feel like they used to use it in ads or maybe on the news we would see it. I don't feel you ever see the 10,000th customer celebration anymore.
It was Rock 107. If you were the 107th caller, you'd get 2 free tickets to the Rock the 25 nightclub. That's what it was. So I don't know. Maybe it's that.
That's how you were rolling in Scranton, PA, baby.
Yeah.
All right.
Rock the 25.
So let's start with our premise about telling stories to ourselves. Is this true? Does everyone do this? Are we doing this?
That's my first question is this a universal thing that the brain creates narrative?
Amy, thanks for asking. It is.
Ooh.
And it is called narrative identity.
Okay.
So here is Gregory Burns. He is the author of The Self-Delusion. And he says, I can break down the question, who am I, into a professor, a father, a farmer, but those are just labels. The parts alone do not constitute the self. Our identity is the story that we tell ourselves and other people about our lives. This narrative is the glue that binds together the things that happen to us and the things we do.
Got it.
Then he delves into the science of this.
Okay. Because it's a hyper-awareness. It's connecting everything together. That is the story. Otherwise, it's just, I am doing this, I am taking a shower, I am talking to somebody.
Exactly. He says, the brain is not a high-fidelity video recorder of everything that happens to us. Instead, it captures snapshots or a highlight reel of our lives. The role of narrative is to fill in all the spaces in between to construct an identity that makes sense to us.
Got it.
That is your narrative identity. This is a thing. It is biologically based. And yes, our brain captures a ton of images And then we create a story with those images about what happened.
It's a highlight reel, like he said. So it's just like when you're watching a movie. We were talking about this in old movies. I'm going to drive over to Margaret's house, and it would be like in real time, me walking down the sidewalk to my car,
Right.
getting in, and more, there's jump cuts in all our, narratives that say, I'm going to go to Margaret's house. And then I'm knocking on the door, and my brain, while I'm watching the movie, is like, oh, she must have driven herself over there. This is now Margaret's house.
That's right. In scene 1, you say, I need to find a new job, even. And in scene 2, we see you working at a bank.
Right.
Where
right.
like she applied for the job. She had a call back for the job. She got, like, we fill in all of the missing pieces, which is a great phenomenon.
And so we can do that for ourselves, reflecting back on our own lived experience. That if the brain only saves the highlight reels, even though we were there for all of it, we do still sort of go from moment to moment and create a story. This makes sense.
And it also means, from zenhabits.net, mental badassery, becoming aware of the stories we tell ourselves.
Okay.
The foundational idea of narrative identity is that a different person could look at the same situation and tell a very different story.
Yes.
Would you like a few examples?
Yes. Give me an example.
You're upset with your spouse because she was rude to you, didn't clean up her messes. Another person might have the same experience, but they might tell themselves the story about how the spouse has been working very hard at her job, has gone out of her way to cook a nice meal, and is tired and needs some comforting.
Okay. Or you're the spouse that didn't clean up, and maybe you're telling yourself that story.
Yes, it's everybody's doing this thing.
Right. Everybody's doing this. It isn't like somebody else walking into your kitchen and like, well, I see this. It's often the two people that are creating the narrative.
And in fact, you create a narrative by the way you fill in the gaps. So if my narrative is Amy doesn't really care about me, she's only in it for the podcast glory, she doesn't really care about me as a person.
The 999th review.
Right. This is going to be the 1,000th review. But let's say I believe that story, right? Then when we get on the mic before we start recording, and we usually kind of catch up a little bit. How's your kids feeling? How's this going? We don't tape that part. But if you are like, okay, let's get right to it. I'm like, see, more evidence that Amy only cares about the podcast, that I am evidence gathering for a very specific story.
Mm-hmm.
But that if I believed fundamentally Amy is a great partner, and she cares about me, and we work together really well, then I am gathering different evidence from your behavior. Like, oh, that was so nice that Amy asked if my child was feeling better after having the flu. That our stories inform a lot of things.
And it occurs to me, okay, so we've talked about negativity bias before, that we tend to notice the bad things around us, and that comes from being, a caveman and looking out for the rattlesnake, right? We attend more to the things that might not be going well around us. Then once we have that negativity bias, we collect evidence that suits the story we're telling ourselves, but it probably also means we are much more likely to tell ourselves positive stories about ourselves and negative stories about the people around us or those that displease us.
I'm going to say maybe, maybe not, because let me give you an internally facing story. So we just did a story about the spouse who's like, they were put on earth to bother me, and like, look at how they don't do anything correct. You might have a story about how you keep procrastinating, keep failing at being disciplined, never stick to a workout routine. Another perspective might be that you've gotten some great things done despite getting distracted. You've been passionate about learning something, and that takes priority over work tasks you're dreading, or you're tired and need rest before you can tackle an exercise with vigor. So it's not necessarily that you're positive about your own actions. I think a lot of people are extremely, this is more proof that I'm a bad mother. This is more person that I'm a fat, lazy, horrible loser.
Right.
We didn't even go to the gym twice this week. I only went once, right? These stories that are internal stories can be very damaging as well.
Are we then more likely to tell negative stories to ourselves about both ourselves and other people? We talk about watching your story, meaning your story is something that can be changed, right? Or you can try to create a different story. Maybe we'll talk about that. But are we at baseline more likely to create negative stories about ourselves and other people?
Not necessarily, because think about, people often say, like, what if you gave yourself the grace you gave other people? Some people are very much Amy is so great and so beautiful, and she's so good about always go to the gym, and she's in such great shape. I can't be like Amy.
true.
I'm a loser and I'm a bad, blah, blah, blah. You know what I mean? Like, it can go either way. And I will say some of the stuff we're going to talk about, I think, with this can feel kind of facile. Like, just change your story. Obviously, it's very difficult to change your story. I'm reminded about our parables and the parables of the wolf. I have two wolves. One is the wolf of anger and pettiness, and one is the wolf of kindness and open-heartedness. Which wolf survives? The one you feed, right? And so I do think this is much more a back to one practice than a something to be fixed. It's a practice that you're going to go back to and say, man, I'm feeling really negative this week. I'm feeling like all is lost and there's no point in going on, and I hate everything. And, listen, since the new year, the headlines have been very anxiety producing in this country. I think a lot of people are feeling like, well, we all just hate each other and there's nothing to be done. That's a story. Or your story might be, I'm feeling like I go out into town and I feel like I get along with people and I see all these people. But when I'm spending 8 hours a day just reading different takes on the shooting that happened in Minneapolis, I'm feeling like all is lost and we all just hate each other and there's no point in even trying to see eye to eye. One of my back to ones in that situation is put down the phone, interact with more actual humans, because that is not my actual human experience. And when I just look on social media, I see people in my life posting a lot of different takes on that situation, and I find myself getting aggravated with them, whatever. But when I'm just sitting with them by the sidelines of my kids' track meet, I'm not having those feelings. I'm having like, look at us humans doing this thing. I think you can watch your story through watching what actions you're taking as well.
I think if the story is there's no point and what's the use, it's hard to argue that that's a useful story, whether it's weight loss or the future of humanity.
Correct.
That there's no point is probably not the best story to stick with.
I think in general, when you're finding yourself physically uncomfortable with feelings that you're feeling, it's a great place to start. What story am I telling myself about what's going on? So I'm in conflict with my family. Am I telling myself they're all out to get me? They're all so small-minded. They're all so stupid. They're out to get me. Okay, can I reform that story for myself somehow? Like, where do I start? I'm believing that we maybe should have called this podcast Take a Pause or slip a piece of paper in between, because I do think, and we'll talk very specifically about solutions, the first step of this is water. One of my favorite pieces of writing ever that I've referenced before on the podcast. David Foster Wallace gave a speech at Kenyon. You can find it. We'll link to it. You should read it. It's so, to me, mind-blowing and insightful. But it's basically, it starts, two young fish are swimming along and they meet an older fish swimming the other way who nods at them and says, "Morning, boys, how's the water?" The two young fish swim on for a bit, and then eventually one of them looks at the other and goes, "What the hell is water?" And that's the beginning of a story about, if you don't know the water you're in,
If you don't know you're in water at all.
you don't
right.
know you're in water, it's hard to solve problems. Like, what is the water that I'm in? Why would someone who lives in a different part of the country and has a different lived experience see this situation differently than I do? If the answer is because they're a dummy and a stupid idiot, you're at the end of what you can do in that situation. But could it be that your water and their water feels very different, and why?
Right.
And like, is there a way to understand, my husband left his socks on the side of the bed instead of putting them in the hamper that is 3 feet away. Is this because he's an awful person who is bent on your personal destruction and wants to mentally torture you? Probably not. So what is the other thing? He's tired. He was just thinking about getting into bed. It's just the way that we interpret the world around us. I think we often abdicate how much control we have over that. And we think of things that are happening to us as opposed to we are part of a system and we are interpreting the things that happen to us.
I've been studying positive intelligence for about a year, which I love. And there's a sort of saying when you have a different story from somebody else, that you approach it with, is there a chance there's 10% of this I'm not seeing? and to just approach a difficult conversation or a difficult person instead of, raising your hackles for the here we go again, to just be curious about, is there a chance I'm missing something? And I'm really going to listen and see if I'm not quite getting something right here. I'm not saying you do that with your abusive parent, but there are a lot of situations where you can approach with the humility that you might not see the whole picture. And it seems to me it's just another way into this being aware that you have a story in the first place.
You touched on a couple things there that I want to talk about. We're going to take a break and we'll be right back.
Hellions, it's time for some spring cleaning, and I don't just mean the coat closets. Doing your financial spring cleaning can actually be super easy when you let Monarch do your financial spring cleaning for you. One dashboard that gets your entire financial life organized. No more clutter, no more mess, no more logins scattered everywhere, just accounts, investments, property, and more, all in one place. Get your first year of Monarch for half off, just $50 with promo code FRESH. Monarch allows you to look not only at what you've already spent, but also to plan for the future. With Monarch, you can set savings goals, plan for big purchases, and notice spending trends before they become a problem. I can generate cash flow reports that show me what we spent this quarter, this month, what we're probably going to spend next month, and feel prepared, organized, and knowing how to plan for the future. No more surprises and a lot more clarity. Try Monarch. Use code FRESH at monarch.com to get your first year half off at just $50. That's 50% off your first year at monarch.com with code FRESH. All my kids learned to swim when they were little. It was super important to me that they be confident and safe in the water. There was only one problem with that: taking them to swim lessons. I mean, the pools were freezing. There were always cranky adults doing laps right there. And it was definitely not, for any of us, what you would call fun.
Amy, heard. But now there's Goldfish Swim School. Goldfish takes a really thoughtful approach to swim lessons, combining research-based teaching with a warm, kid-friendly environment that actually helps kids thrive in the water.
Every detail at Goldfish is thoughtfully designed to create a golden experience, from shiver-free, warm indoor pools to comfy waiting areas for parents to professionally trained lifeguards on deck.
Goldfish uses an approach called the science of swim play, which combines guided play with proven teaching techniques to help kids learn to swim, build water safety skills, and gain confidence, all at their own pace. Lessons are designed to meet kids exactly where they're at.
If you've been thinking about swim lessons or just wondering where to start, this is a great opportunity. Right now, Goldfish Swim School is offering a waived membership plus your child's first lesson free at participating locations.
Just visit goldfishswimschool.com/free to find a location near you and enroll using promo code FREE.
That's goldfishswimschool.com/free, promo code FREE.
You know that thing where you get an amazing pair of shoes at a really great price and want to tell everyone about it? Yeah, so do we. Here at Designer Shoe Warehouse, we'll give you something to brag about, like the latest styles from brands you love, or the trends everyone's obsessing over, or shoes that make you feel like, well, you. So go ahead, show off a little. Find shoes that get you at prices that get your budget. Head to your DSW store or DSW.com today. DSW, let us surprise you.
So yes, if someone is being abusive to you, someone is really causing you harm, you do not have the mental capacity to change that story.
Right.
Understand that we're talking about things that happen at the fat part of the bell curve. Understand that we are not doctors or mental health professionals. We're having a kind of 30,000 foot view of this. Your mileage may certainly vary.
Mm-hmm.
You also talked about coming in with this idea of, is there 10% of this that I might be wrong about? Is there any part of this? I think also, and my husband is so good at this, and I try to learn this from him, what's your starting point? My husband will often say to me, like, is it possible that you're putting a motivation on that person that they don't have? This is the empty boat theory, which we also talked about in our parables, that someone is struck by a boat and they're like, why would this person do this? Why are they hitting me? Why are they running to me? And then they turn and the boat is empty. It's just drifted from the dock. And it changes their whole perspective. Oh, this was just an accident.
Right. I'm not mad. It was an accident. Right.
Is the boat empty? Are you putting someone in that boat? And the other thing that I have become so much more committed to the older I get is this was done because the other person is an idiot is almost always wrong. What idiot set up this system of serving the kids in the high school cafeteria? There are 18 systems in on that. They've tried a lot of things. And the fact of the matter is feeding 350 kids in 45 minutes is very, very hard and might be near impossible. And so this might be the best system that they've come up with. But take out of the middle of that someone has to be an idiot. And then look at the problem and say, oh, they've dealt with this very complicated problem this way. Now, if you see efficiencies that might be added, someone might be up for that conversation. But when you start at this must exist because other people are idiots, you're not going to have a good time solving those problems.
Right. Because they're doing the same thing that the person on the other side is probably also not doing what is the 10% I'm not seeing about this situation? I mean, it is a mind trick you have to play on yourself, and most of us don't do it. So I guess that's part of it, that why this gets hard is that you're like, okay, let's really talk about this. And the person is like, no, I'm definitely right. They're idiots. But it's a little bit hard to work with that. It doesn't mean it's going to flow like water and be easy just because you make this small change.
No, but I do think there are touchstones that we're getting to that you can be like,
yeah,
I'm extremely frustrated and I'm telling myself it's because other people are idiots. But I've established in my calm, non-red brain that is not a great starting point. So when I'm feeling that feeling, can I take a breath and say, the David Foster Wallace essay is all about surviving like a trip to the grocery store and how frustrating it is and like these stupid SUVs blocking your parking space. And he tells this whole story and then he tells it from a different point of view. And it doesn't mean that you're never going to feel frustration again and that every frustrating situation you're going to walk in and be like, what if the teller is just having a really bad day herself? Maybe her mom's sick. You're not going to become this like super Zen master, but it's still worthwhile to ask yourself these questions and give yourself these tools.
Right. Okay. I understand that.
So let's talk about other examples of stories that we tell ourselves. I heard Rosie O'Donnell in an interview once talking about the person she was dating at the time. If you know her and her talk show or anything about her, she talks a lot about losing her mother when she was very young, like 5 or 6 years old. Her mother died, I think, of cancer. And that she would often say, like, well, as a motherless child, and like, this is how I approach stuff. And I have this kind of damage because I lost my mother. And she talked about her girlfriend at the time saying, it's interesting to me that like a motherless daughter is the story you tell other people about yourself, because I look at you and I see one of the most successful, wealthiest women in the United States, who started a talk show, who built this career from nothing with no connections, who did all this other stuff, and whose mom died 55 years ago or 50 years ago. So is it possible that you've moved on or you've built something on top of this motherless daughter story? Are you still centering a story about 5-year-old you that may not be the right story for 55-year-old you or however old she was at the time?
And what was the outcome for that? Was that good advice and Rosie stopped centering that part of her story? Or was the outcome it's not that easy?
I think the outcome, and she would not have used this language, was like, this is something I'm constantly going back to one on. You are not going to become a person who's like, wow, great point. Hi, everyone. I'm a successful millionaire talk show host. This was back in the talk show host days. No, you're not going to suddenly change your story because someone told you about it. But I think, and we talk about this with our kids all the time, like if you have a kid who had out of control ADHD as a 5-year-old, who you couldn't take to restaurants, you couldn't take anywhere, was bouncing off the walls, ripping things off the walls, just, really struggling with behaviors when they were 5, it's very possible that through no fault of your own, you have this kid who had this very marked behavior at 5. At 15, are you still parenting the kid with ADHD who may have, through therapy, medication, and just growing older, calmed those behaviors down? I mean, you talk about this as like, oh, don't even bother giving it to him. He's too picky. He won't eat it. Don't put a story on your kids either.
Yeah. ADHD has this not a comorbidity, but something that happens called rejection sensitivity dysphoria. Like, I knew you didn't like me. I knew it wouldn't work, that kids with ADHD may be more likely to do that. And they're looking into why. And one approach is like, it's not actually physiological. It is that if you have ADHD, by the time you're 10, you will have been corrected approximately, 15,000 more times than somebody who doesn't have ADHD. And so it is maybe a version of the story you tell yourself because you learned it from an early age that you don't do anything right. Like, Rosie O'Donnell's not a bad person for having been strongly affected by her mother's death, right?
There is no part of this that is like you're doing something wrong.
Right.
Everybody has, think of it as a computer. I'm on a beautiful, like a MacBook. I see you on the screen. I see my backup track. I see the notes for this episode. This computer, the reason I see those things is because this computer has an operating system. That operating system is now Mac OS,
Thunderbird.
For Nexia or what, a Thunderbird. Exactly. I don't know what the heck the operating system is. Otherwise, you would just see like crazy code, right? It's a front for what I'm seeing. That is how narrative identity works. It's just the way that you are putting the stories together. Somebody may have put this story on you. If I raised you from birth every day to be like, you're worthless, your narrative identity story would be gathering evidence for your worthlessness. Like that somebody could put an identity narrative on you. If your narrative identity is, we can't take you anywhere, you destroy everything, that's going to affect. Now, it doesn't mean your parents are terrible people for putting that. I mean, if they put you are worthless, maybe they are terrible parents at least, but everybody has these operating systems. Everybody has these stories based on their life experience. I have people in my life who have served in combat areas and have PTSD, right? They sit with their backs to the door because their narrative identity is, in busy places, I have to constantly scan for where a bomb might go off. They're now home and doing that in their local tavern, like still sitting with their back against the wall, scanning because their narrative has taught them that thing. None of this is bad. Thank God that person had that to protect them when they were in a combat situation, to be like, don't sit near the garbage can. That could explode. Watch that guy. He's walking around like he might have something in his backpack. That's a survival instinct in that place. But it's saying, do I still need that story if I'm sitting in now a restaurant in Phillipsburg, Ohio, where there is much less likelihood that there's going to be a bomb that goes off?
And maybe the first step is being aware, like, oh, this is the story.
This is water, baby. This is water. It's all this is water.
I am over applying a lesson that I needed to learn in one place in another place.
And these are extreme examples, but let's talk about some other stories that we tell ourselves. I'm not good at math is something that I said to my roommate from college, who was a physics major and is now a physics professor. She was like, that's not true. You probably are good at math, but at some point you didn't feel good at math and you were encouraged that girls don't do math. And she gave me this long lecture about it. I'm not sure which part of that is true, but it's worth at least examining. I'm not good at math. I mean, believe me, in college, I was a theater major. I was like, guess what? Hooray, I never have to use math again. And now I have a calculator if I need to do anything basic. And I also have Amy when I'm like, how do you calculate 70% of this? And she's like, that's algebra. I was like, yeah, I stopped before then. And she does it for me. Those kind of stories can be harmless, but it's just always good to know what your story is. What is your water? I am bad at math. I am not athletic. My sister-in-law always says I'm not athletic. I grew up, I was not an athlete. I was not an athlete growing up. And then in her probably 20s, she found a huge love of running. And now she competes in races and she loves it. So she didn't let her story, I'm not athletic, stop her from finding this cool thing that she really enjoys.
Because that's my story. It's that I was a kid who would get tummy aches every Tuesday and Thursday because those were gym days. It only worked didn't work for very long, but I was really afraid of my gym teacher because we played dodgeball every week. And I have, since then grown up to be somebody I don't know what I'm doing. I'm bad at sports. If you want me to play pickleball with you, you think you do, but I'm terrible, and you will end up being mad at me, at least for one of my kids, mad at me for being bad. No, thank you. And it's a story that's preventing me from perhaps finding my great love of pickleball.
Or not. But worth asking the question.
Right. It's worth knowing that it's something I'm choosing to construct.
Going to come in hot with my friend Robert's grandmother's version of this, where we were sitting and saying, oh, well, this professor, and he probably doesn't like us. And I think the reason he did this, signing all these. And she said, you all will have trouble enough. You do not need to borrow trouble. And borrowing trouble is a form of storytelling, right? This will all go wrong. What if this weird spot is face cancer? Like whatever your story is, watch stories that borrow trouble.
It's so easy to see this in other people too.
So easy.
What if when I go to college, I don't have a good roommate? Or what if? You can say, like, don't do that. Don't decide ahead of time. And what is that? That's another natural thing, I guess, that we can see other people's stories as stories, but we think our own stories are real.
That's right. The capital T truth is, and your truth is part of an operating system that was built through a series of experiences that you had as an individual. Some of those, I think, are more marked if you grew up in a childhood where you were told you are a bad kid, like things like that. Those are going to be very, very recognizable in your narrative, but we're all doing this.
Right.
The final example I want to use is my sister, who always jokes, when people tell you about themselves, believe the opposite.
This is so true. I have totally taken this on. This is now the thing I tell people.
Oh my gosh, right? I am so laid back. It's like, no, God, no.
Right.
Like, why are you saying that? That ain't it. But people tell themselves stories that are wrong too.
This is like, as a longtime watcher of Sister Wives or other reality shows, it's such a great way to approach watching reality television. Like, hi, I'm Amy. I'm not an athlete, but I'm really easygoing. I'm like, oh, watch out for her. She's going to have a surprisingly good pickleball serve, but she will not be easygoing at all.
Watch out. Watch out for Amy. She's a pickleball hustler, people. You heard her here first.
The opposite of however they introduce themselves.
Absolutely. All right. So we're going to take a break and come back and talk about whether or not it's really possible to change our stories.
My favorite skincare products actually feel more like self-care, like they're so nice to put on and they smell so good that I'm actually happy when I get to that part of my day. And I swear that is how I feel about Osea's anti-aging body balm.
Amy, you are usually the lotions and potions queen on this podcast, but I have to say, hard agree.
Osea's anti-aging body balm is a liquid silk body balm that combines the lasting hydration of a lotion with the firming power of a serum, leaving skin smoother and firmer.
This body balm is clinically tested and designed to deliver visible results you can see and feel.
So we've gotten to use this product for a couple of months now, and I swear I have really noticed firmer and smoother skin, like on the back of my hands. It's like getting a mini spa treatment from head to toe.
Get a spring-worthy glow with clean, clinically tested skincare from Osea. And right now, we have a special discount just for our listeners.
Get 10% off your first order site-wide with code FRESH at OseaMalibu.com.
That's 10% off your first order with code FRESH at OSEAMalibu.com.
Amy, when I'm having a good hair day, it usually makes my whole day better. And that's why on every day, I'm taking Nutrafol.
Nutrafol is the #1 dermatologist-recommended hair growth supplement brand. And it's the #1 hair growth supplement brand personally used by dermatologists. Nutrafol's hair growth supplements are peer-reviewed, NSF certified for sport, and clinically tested.
Nutrafol offers multiple formulas for men and women, tailored to different life stages and lifestyle factors, so you get support that's actually right for you. Adding Nutrafol to your daily routine is easy. Order online, no prescription needed, with automated deliveries and free shipping to keep you on track.
Let your hair be one less thing to worry about. See visibly thicker, stronger, faster-growing hair in 3 to 6 months with Nutrafol.
For a limited time, Nutrafol is offering our listeners $10 off your first month subscription and free shipping when you visit Nutrafol.com and enter promo code LAUGHING.
That's Nutrafol.com, spelled Nutrafol.com, promo code LAUGHING.
And now, what type of car mom are you?
From the What Fresh Hell podcast, the camp counselor.
All right, kids, that was a great game of I Spy. Next up, let's all play the license plate game. The Music Historian.
How dare you? This is not old people's music. This is a seminal 90s R&B classic, Just Kickin' It by Escape. They are sometimes referred to as the hip-hop version of En Vogue. They were discovered by Jermaine Dupri and went on to have hits like The Professional.
In you go, kids. We've got 7:45 a.m. drop-off at swim team, and then we'll be right on time for our 8:02 drop-off at the baseball field. Then swing by the Browns, drop off Henry, pick up Christy. As long as the left turn lane on Maple isn't blocked, we'll be right on time for 8:30 at the Girl Scouts. The Karaoke Queen.
Oh my God, kids, here comes the key change. You're here, there's nothing I fear. I believe that my heart will go on. The cars are my time for heartfelt talks, Mom.
So listen, guys, how's it going? How are the friendships? Who's feeling peer pressure, huh? I just want you to know, like my kids know, I am always an askable person. Any questions, no topic off limits. Any questions about sexually transmitted diseases, friends? Anyone?
This has been What Type of Car Mom Are You?
From the What Fresh Hell podcast.
Another part that you were talking about with sister wives is, do you have people in your life that are telling you stories that are not great for you? And sometimes it's just about putting the piece of paper in. You pick up that baby too much, you're spoiling that baby.
Yeah.
You should let that baby cry or they're going to grow up spoiled and rotten. It's just the moment to take a breath and be like, oh, someone told that person that story and now they're repeating it. It can help you put a little distance between like, my mother's a bad person who hates me and doesn't think I should love on my baby because she wasn't capable of love. She was told a story and she still believes that story, but I don't have to believe that story. I can see the water. I can change what I think.
Wow.
Pretty deep.
I like that. We had a babysitter in our past who was a yoga instructor, and we both knew somebody who was just impossible. And I asked this woman how she was able to engage with this person so calmly. And she said, I always imagine a difficult person as a tiny baby being held. You know, somebody loved them and they were a loving, lovable. And then probably something happened to make that person turn against the world in the way that they do. But they were once a baby. I'm like, okay, I'll try that.
Okay, fine. We'll be generous of spirit. Fine. There's an amazing scene in Eat, Pray, Love where Elizabeth Gilbert, the narrator, is working at a yoga retreat. And she's been at this yoga place for a couple months or however long she's been there. And she feels this kind of sense of ownership of it. And like, we're here to stay calm. And I understand how it works around here. These people start coming up to register and they're, you know, kind of like rich people come to a yoga retreat and they're like, I can't believe you don't have my name. That's spelled wrong. They're like yelling and carrying on. And she's like, these horrible people are just buying their way in to this experience that I've worked hard for. And that the like yogi monk, whoever it is sitting next to her is like, you can see how scared they feel, can't you? You can feel how frightened they are to be trying something like this. They're taking the exact same information and processing it as two different stories.
Yeah.
And there's just a tremendous amount of possibility and magic in that. And it doesn't mean that you're going to go through life as a Zen monk who's like, thank you for yelling at me, child. I understand. I'm your safe space. And it's so great that you trust me with this emotion while your child is like slamming doors. I don't even know that you should try to get to that place because we are humans and we have to be treated with some kind of respect and that's all fine. But it's just a good reminder of like, I think, in fact, this is the ultimate human power.
It is
your ability to change your mind.
If you can create your own story, right, then you have agency and then you can create a different story. That possibility exists, even though it's hard, because you're choosing to create something subconsciously in the first place.
Yes. And I don't like to get facile with this, but I'm going to just give this example. A person who is imprisoned, right? Taken into prison, that person still has what David Foster Wallace would call their skull-sized kingdom. They have a kingdom within themselves that can never be stripped away from them. You can take my freedom, my clothing, you can take everything away from me, but foundationally, no one can take from you your skull-sized kingdom, like your way of interpreting the world. And so if the imagining an unjust imprisonment, if the point is to take everything from you, they can't actually take the most important thing from you, which is your mind and how you think about things. Nobody can touch that. It's very facile. Don't put me in prison. It's very easy to say, very hard to practice.
Right.
But I think there's worth in imagining this practice.
It is your skull-sized kingdom, so you might as well make it a place where you want to be.
You might as well try.
Yeah, you might as well try.
Well said. Here is an article called Take Control of the Story You Tell About Yourself from Psychology Today by Samantha Boardman, MD. According to psychologist Dan McAdams of Northwestern University, wanted to go there, got waitlisted, and then rejected. But I'm not here to bring up my bitter past, Amy.
Don't put that in your skull-sized kingdom.
I'm kicking it out of my skull-sized kingdom. Two narrative themes emerge as key predictors of mental health. Do you have any guesses of what the two things are?
Well, I'm peeking at the notes. So I know the first one is agency. So that's
Agency.
it. Okay, you have agency.
When we tell our story, we describe having some control over past events and recognizing our role in shaping the outcome.
Mm-hmm.
This is big. And this is something that you can work with your kids and yourself on daily. Agency. If the world is just happening to you, I have one child who I have this discussion with fairly often. Okay, fine. I guess I'm just a terrible person. You know, when I get mad at him for leaving wrappers.
Hamburger.
Yeah, half-eaten and hamburger in my bed,
For example.
I guess I'm just terrible. I'm like, no, that's really not allowed. You can't just be like, well, the answer to me leaving hamburger in your bed and being in trouble is I guess I'm just a terrible person. No, you had agency. You could have made a different choice. You didn't make a different choice. Next time you will make a different choice. Agency is so important in your story. Things happen to you and things may have happened to you that were terrible.
It seems to me that the first step, though, is being like, oh, I do have agency. I could create a different story. Things don't get better only when the different story is so locked in, you never remember the old one. Things can start to get better once you realize, oh, I do have power to make this a little bit different for myself.
Yes. And there may have been times in your life when you didn't have agency.
Right.
You might have been a small child in an abusive home. You had no agency.
Right.
And there is tremendous damage that has been done to you in those years that will be with you for the rest of your life. But maybe now, as a 40-something mom with children of your own, you may want to be asking yourself, what is my agency now? I am no longer a child with no agency. I am an adult with agency. Does that look like getting therapy to deal with this trauma? Does that look like reading and listening to parenting topics about changing outcomes when you had an ACEs childhood or a childhood with high conflict and abuse? So again, very facile, like easy for me to say, like, hey, abused child, now you have agency. So, you know, change it all around. Agency is hard, but until you step into agency, you cannot change anything about your life.
Right. But just realizing you have it is a really good place to start. And then you can stay there for a little while. I think like, oh, I could do something different though. And then let that sit and then start to think about what it might be.
There you go. There's a scene. It's a spoiler. If you haven't seen the movie Waitress, it's been out for like 30 years. So I don't feel too bad giving you a spoiler. But Kerry Russell is in an abusive relationship throughout the whole film. And she can't get away from this guy. And she keeps making excuses. And then she has a baby. And the minute they hand her the baby, she looks up and she's like, get out. Like everything about her mind is changed the second she's handed this baby. I actually am not a huge fan of this story because I don't think that's really how it works.
Right.
I think it's much more of a back to one. Like I think it's very rarely that you have a single experience or someone says a single thing to you and then you open a door to a new life as it is portrayed in that movie. But I still like the idea of it that moments where you're like, I need to bring agency closer in are useful. And the next step of this that is talked about in this same article is the other key predictor of mental health for people is redemption. When we recount challenging times, we are able to find some kind of positive meaning or personal growth.
So that you tell yourself the stories of redemption that you have for yourself, like you think about the times that you overcame.
I'm trying to think of an example that's not incredibly depressing. Our dog died unexpectedly, and it was horrible, but it reminded us of how capable we are of love. As we come away from the experience, we realize that we clung to each other as a family to get through it, that we were able to take this sadness and we were all able to pick it up together rather than having to do it alone. The way that you have come through difficult experiences, as opposed to my dog died, my life was ruined, and here I am, which is a ridiculously huge example. But I will use an example of getting a divorce, right? Mm-hmm. Your husband cheats on you and leaves you for like a, 20-year-old. Let's say a 25-year-old. So he's not such a creep. But, your husband leaves you unexpectedly and is like, you're too old and ugly. I'm leaving you for this younger woman, right? That's an extremely painful experience, of which one version of the story is the rest of your life is defined by like, I had a happy life and then this jerk left me with these kids and now I'm alone.
And no one is to be trusted ever.
No one is to be trusted. To your kids, it's like, this guy is a horrible person. And again, I don't blame anybody who takes any take or story after this.
Right. But that's a skull kingdom that's difficult to live within, right?
It's just that it's so painful for you and everyone around you. And I definitely know people who've had that experience and gotten very stuck in that place. And for them, I have a lot of sympathy. And I know other people who spent 2 or 3 years in that space and then went back, got a degree, started a new career, all things that would have never been possible if this thing hadn't happened, and are able to say, this darkness is the beginning of redemption and a beginning of a change that I can make positive. Or who is the poet? I think it's Rumi. Someone gave me a box of darkness and it took me years to realize that it too was a gift. And it's just like, someone's going to give you a box of darkness. Will it be a gift or a punishment? And the only person who can really control that is you.
That's right. That's what I was going to say. Like, this is not a process that can be rushed. Like, you're not turning your frown upside down a week later that you were betrayed by your husband.
No, you're not like starting the redemption the next day, right?
Right. And you're also not telling your friend that she really has to get some perspective and realize that there's a possibility for good. Like, this is for you to do for yourself. It's not for you to do for other people or to tell other people to hurry up and do. But it is possible.
The Box of Darkness is from Mary Oliver's poem, The Uses of Sorrow. And the quote is, she's so incredible. Gosh, if you haven't read Mary Oliver poetry, stop fighting with people on the internet and read some Mary Oliver. It'll change your life.
Do you have the name of this poem here? Because then
it's called The Uses of Sorrow, and I'll give you the exact quote. Someone I loved once gave me a box full of darkness. It took me years to understand that this too was a gift.
The part I'm getting out of that, it took me years.
It took me years. But that's right. It doesn't mean that the day someone punches you in the face. I once got mugged in a somewhat violent mugging. And I was talking to a friend of mine the next day. And she said, well, yeah, desperate people do desperate things. And I was like, yeah, I'm not ready for that perspective yet. And now as I look back, I'm like, yes, socioeconomic forces and lots of things come together to cause crime. And we should attack those things at the roots. But I was not ready for that 24 hours after getting violently mugged to see it from the mugger's perspective, right? And there may be things that you're never, it also doesn't mean you forgive the person who gave you a box of darkness. It doesn't mean you let the person who gave you a box of darkness back into your life. It just means that you allow yourself to see the box of darkness years later as a gift in and of itself, that you keep your mind open to that.
Right. You don't say it wasn't a box of darkness, that it didn't happen, or that it was actually a box of light.
No, absolutely not.
I love that. I love that. John Cunningham, there's a quote here. We become the stories we tell ourselves. We also become the stories our parents tell us. Well, that's true to an extent, but we're trying to say, I mean, I hope by the time you are an Oldilocks like me, that you have given yourself the gift of doing the work to move beyond the stories that other people put on you.
Yeah. And I think that, if this topic resonated with you, there's a lot of resources you can find, including therapy, but a lot of resources you can find about how to start thinking about what your story is and changing it. And I'll finish with this quote from Bruce Feeler, I believe his name is, in the New York Times.
He lost his wife. I know. So anyway, keep that in mind when you're listening to this.
If you want a happier family, create, refine, and retell the story of your family's positive moments and your ability to bounce back from difficult ones. This act alone may increase the odds that your family will thrive for many generations to come. It's not denial, though.
No.
It's not nothing bad ever happened to us. It's not nothing can hurt us because we're a great family. It's we have been through some really hard things, and those things almost broke us. But here we are, and here's how we came back from those things.
You can also start lighter. Like I'm thinking of a story that we were supposed to go on a vacation with another family. The house fell through at the last second, the Airbnb. That family then went to Kiowa Island in South Carolina. That became their favorite family holiday destination. And the story was like, if we hadn't had this thing happen, it was like, oh no, the house was canceled. We would never have found our new favorite place. I mean, that's adversity of a very small sort, but it is a story.
But these have to be small and large. And the larger they are, the harder they are. And be gentle on yourself. It may take you 5 years after the mugging to be like, okay, I can see from a young teen boy's point of view where mugging me would have felt like the right choice or whatever. You don't even have to get there. It's just a little bit what you hold and what you let go of and how you interpret things. Lots of work to be done here and more than we could get to in a single episode, but I really loved this research and talking about this topic.
Yeah. Narrative identity. Okay, we'll put the links to everything that Margaret researched in the show notes for this episode and the Mary Oliver poem, which was amazing. I loved this one.
Yeah, me too. I really enjoyed talking about this with you. And friends, remember, as we said in the beginning, we are 9 reviews from the finish line. Or really the start of another chase.
I will say, I was on Apple Podcasts recently, listening to a podcast that I like. I mean, you know what? I am going to take my own medicine and I'm going to leave these people a review right now saying how much I like it. I could not figure out how to do it. So we are going to put foolproof instructions. I mean, review us wherever you listen. But if you're listening on Apple Podcasts, that's where we're being silly about these 1,000 reviews. We'll put link in the show notes to how you can do it because I honestly couldn't find it. And I thought, oh, that's the only thing holding us back.
That's the only reason those 9 people are not coming through. You changed your story.
Everybody.
You were like, it's not that everyone hates us. It doesn't want to take the time to review us. Amazing work, Amy.
Right.
And with that, everyone, thanks for listening. We'll talk to you next time.
So long.
Starting a business can seem like a daunting task, unless you have a partner like Shopify. They have the tools you need to start and grow your business. From designing a website to marketing to selling and beyond, Shopify can help with everything you need. There's a reason millions of companies like Mattel, Heinz, and Allbirds continue to trust and use them. With Shopify on your side, turn your big business idea into... Sign up for your $1 per month trial at shopify.com/special offer.